The Empire begins to phase out clones. The team takes on new missions. Crosshair turns over a new leaf and more as the Sky Guys are back to review Season 2 of The Bad Batch.
All right, we are back here. Happy May the 4th to you here on the podcast from us at the Sky Guys. We're getting ready to celebrate the Star Wars holiday by going back and revisiting Season 2 of The Bad Batch. It wrapped up in late March. Finally got around to after all the Mando coverage is done. My host, Mike Phillips, also here with us today. The man's voice here in narration every single week. Pete Consadori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. It's always great talking Stars with you guys. We're talking about Bad Batch Season 2, which I'm excited to see what your general thoughts were. But yeah, very excited to be here as always.
Also with us today here, the secret claw of this podcast, Nick Fraietta is here. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. It was, we talked about the episodes in length, all of them individually, and we were pretty high on the end of the season, and the good episodes, at least. This is a good season, so I'm excited to talk about how it formed as an actual season rather than episode by episode.
Absolutely here. So, Pete, now we're in the off-season mode here. People want to follow us on the Sky Guys. Feel free to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, all the usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys, your favorite podcast platform. Follow episodes there. Obviously, we have a lot of content coming up here. We have a little bit of break before Ahsoka, but we have some fun stuff coming. So make sure you subscribe to get all of it.
Yeah, we're in that exclusive content period, right? All this stuff that we're going to be putting out probably until Ahsoka is going to be in that exclusive feed, right, Mike? So you definitely want to make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. And like Mike said, all the usual suspects where you can find your podcast, that's where we're at. So definitely go and subscribe.
Yep. And Nick, people want to follow us on social media. How can they do that?
At Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep. You can also check out the YouTube page, Mike Phillips on YouTube, video versions of the podcast on there. We got all our graphics in there. Plus, I don't have a clone here, but I do have Mr. R2D2 here. So he's going to be in the mix this week.
Okay. Hello, R2.
A little R2 action here. So, Nick, there's a little bit of Star Wars news. You want to catch us up?
Sure. I'll start with Dave Filoni in an interview recently has said that Ahsoka will be essentially a live-action Season 5 of Star Wars Rebels. Now, that's something we all knew. That's not news to anyone. So, maybe if it's news to you and you're listening, there you go. But I think everyone who's listened to this podcast and has paid attention to Star Wars has kind of known that's what it was going to be for a long time.
Yeah, Pete, once again, we'll put the PSA out for the audience. You have not watched Star Wars Rebels yet. You got 4 months to do it.
Yeah, plenty of time. We highly recommend it. If you don't want to watch all the Star Wars Rebels, go listen to our podcast. We kind of go in depth to each season. But it's still good to watch the episodes so you can get the little nuances of the show before you go and see Ahsoka later this year.
Yeah, plus I think we're going to do the Rebels for Beginners podcast at some point, Nick, this summer, so get you filled in on the gaps for what you need to know from Rebels.
Yep, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. What else we got?
The next piece of news here is the Filoni movie is basically going to be the Avengers of the Mandoverse. That's what we thought. It's not the end of the Mandoverse, but it's just going to be everyone coming together. That's something we thought. Not really surprising there.
No.
We found out that the movie that ended up being the Rey movie that we just learned about a couple weeks ago was originally the Lindelof movie that me and Mike had our bet on, actually. And turns out he was asked to leave the project. He did not step down on his own power. I mean, he kind of did. It wasn't like he was fired, but he was kind of asked to leave. I don't know, do you have any more information on that, Mike?
Yeah, basically, he did an interview, I think, with Variety. He basically said that, like, I wrote the script. We had a writer's room going here. I was asked to lead the project. It's like, no hard feelings. I'll be first in line trying to get back in this universe here. But the thing that bothers me here, and Nick, I'm sure you'll get into a second, I feel like that Star Wars seems to run off a lot of talented people from their projects.
Yeah. Pete, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's a trend, right? I think we've seen it a couple times already. I'm not really sure what happened behind closed doors, so I feel like none of us can probably make claims or any judgments about the calls that are made to get this talent off the movie. But we'll see how the movie comes out. We'll see how they do without that top talent there.
Yeah, no, Nick, you guys something you want to add?
Yeah. So I have a list here of movies that have been planned under Disney's Star Wars. There's a total of 15 movies that have either happened or planned or been announced since the merger or whatever, the acquisition in 2012. Two of them have come out with zero interruption. Out of the 15, those two are The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Force Awakens came out. J.J. Abrams was always planned to write, direct, whatever he did, and it happened. Same with The Last Jedi and Rian Johnson. Since then, I'm not going to go over each director's name because it would take too long here, but Rogue One was rewritten and reshot. Boba Fett was canceled and turned into a TV show. Solo was reshot by Ron Howard. We know that ended up coming out, but it was reshot. Rogue One is the same thing, what I said. Duel of the Fates was the original title, episode 9, that was rewritten and redone and renamed. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show was originally a movie that got reformed into a movie. Boba Fett happened again. Boba Fett was originally a movie that got canceled. Then they were trying to make it a movie again and said, you know what, let's make it a show. There was an untitled Jedi prequel from the guys who did Game of Thrones that was canceled. Rogue Squadron movie, we learned, has been canceled. There was a J.D. Dillard who had an untitled film that was canceled.
That's news to me. I haven't heard that one.
I didn't hear that one either. The Kevin Feige movie that we had heard some rumors about, canceled. And now we've learned that the Lindelof project, he was thrown off of. The movie, is still pending. Still could come out. And then the other two are the two movies that we also learned about at Celebration. So as of now, we've had all these that have been canceled or reshot. And then we have two that it still could happen to. Which would be the Filoni movie and what was the other one?
The early Jedi.
The Dawn of the Jedi movie.
Yeah.
So those two are still pending, but there's been 13 projects, or excuse me, 11 projects that have been either changed in some way, 2 that have actually happened, and 2 that are pending.
Yeah, Pete, my one point on this, I'm going to say, I feel like too many cooks in the kitchen with this one. I feel like they got to, let these people, actually do their things. I get that, you have a vision about how this thing should go. Either appoint someone, make Jon Favreau that guy or Filoni that guy, have someone be the overseer and say, I want this to be like this, or let these guys do their individual visions. Don't try and do both things. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Again, can't speculate about what happens behind closed doors with Disney. But it's a lot. It's a lot of wrong in production when it comes to having to reshoot or changing direction. And I don't know if that's because they're panicking and they don't know if the audience will like it, so they panic before they actually even move forward with things. We know there's a couple of instances where there have been problems with actors, actresses, or whatnot, and that's why things got moved around or also canceled. But it's a little concerning. It's concerning that it seems like there's a bunch of unorganized people working for Disney when it comes to Star Wars, and I think that's why we got the products of episodes 8 and 9 like we did. So I think that they need to slow down. Like you said, get one set person to be in charge of everything production-wise and to have the same kind of vision, and not just make claims that things are going to happen before you actually know they're going to happen. I feel like a lot of these were jumping the gun a bit, and that's why they were all canceled, because they didn't actually know if it was going to happen. They just wanted something to announce. They announced it, or there was rumors out there, and then, nope, no, we're not doing that. We're shutting it down.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We'll discuss this for the future, Nick. We do have podcasts playing the Odyssey about what's gone with all these movies. I think this is a good discussion point for the future.
Yeah, the only thing I have to add is that to their benefit, a lot of these things have not actually been announced. Like the Kevin Feige thing, when Kathleen Kennedy heard it, she was like, "The what?" Yeah. We never said that. That's just a lot of these things were rumors that ended up getting speculation and growing traction on the internet. So to say that there's actually been 11 that have been canceled, more so, and the other stuff was repurposed into TV, or the stuff did come out. In reality, it's only 4 things that were actually canceled, maybe even less. I think Rogue Squadron is the only thing that actually announced and didn't happen. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. And maybe you could say they need one centralized person. Maybe that person is Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe it is, but maybe she's not doing a good enough job at keeping things, in cahoots until it's official that it needs to come out.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I think let's go ahead to season 2 of the Bad Batch here. So general thoughts on the panel here, because obviously you had a few weeks to sit on it, wait to see what happened with Celebration with the announcements from them. We did find out that season 3 is the final season of the show, which is feels very quick considering that most Rebels went 4 seasons and Clone Wars went 7 here. So, Nick, I'll start with you. What do you think about what the season we just got?
I think it was a good season, and I don't mind that it's only going to be 3. I don't think of this show as a standalone show the way I do with Clone Wars and Rebels. To me, this is a spin-off of the Clone Wars, and it's okay if it's going to only last what it did. But this season, if I had to rate it real quick on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give season 1 like a 5, and I'd probably give this like a 7. So in my mind, it was a better season. There are things that we were annoyed with this season, with the Sid missions and the Omega making random friends every episode for no reason and trying to make her a kid and her not growing up at all. But overall, there were some really, really good episodes in this season. And I believe the finale was one of them. The mid-season finale was one of them. And then they did a great job at that.
Yeah, Pete, what do you think about what we got as a season as a whole?
It's going to be a boring podcast because I feel like Nick and I have the same opinion of it. I think it was a good season. I think it was better than season 1. Do I think it was the best season of Star Wars I've ever seen? No. There were, like Nick said, there were things that annoyed us. There were things that we felt were really, really good. And I actually kind of like that it's only going to be 3 seasons. I think spinoff of Clone Wars is a great way to put it, but I also just don't think there's the content. I think we've talked about this at nauseum, honestly, is we just had so much of this time period of Star Wars already. It's just kind of like, why keep drawing it out? I think if they can wrap this up in season 3 and put a bow on it nicely and not just waste the season, I think we're gonna have something really good to look forward to.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think overall, I think like that they had some cool storylines in there this season, whether it was the stuff with the clones getting phased out, whether it was the crosshair stuff, but like that stuff was spread very thin for me. And my issue was like, again, I said back when they did the preview twice, actually, I said like, we need character development from the team to get the show actually something we care about here. And Nick, I'd say what 1 out of 5 got decent character development this season.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Tech definitely did. That's 100%.
He's the one I counted.
He's the one. Wrecker did, but last season, and it kind of didn't do anything this season. And I think Hunter, the same thing. I think they got development last season, but this season they were kind of stale.
Yeah, so let's talk about this character development here because I mean, obviously, we all love Tech because Tech obviously is the character takes the biggest leap forward, where he's basically the brain guy in season 1, and he becomes more of a leader in season 2. He makes a sacrifice at the end of the season, and presumably he's dead. So we assume we're not seeing him again here. But I mean, Hunter, very slight movement away from Sid. Echo is basically the same Echo he's been the entire show. No real movement there, apart from we have to do something better than the Rebels. And Omega is just takes like 5 steps backwards every time we think she gets a step forward here. So I mean, Dick covered a record. Pete, like I think again, the fact I think this season 3 is the end, I think is a good sign because like they don't really have much story they're telling with these characters as a whole, sort of developing them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it also speaks volumes that Crosshair had more character development in 5 episodes than Omega did in 2 seasons. And I think that you're right. I mean, like we just said, there's not a lot there. We're spreading ourselves thin. So I agree with you, Tech, and I would add Crosshair in there as the 2 characters with the best development in this season.
I didn't even count Crosshair as the main team. He had his own story. He never saw the team this season.
Well, yeah, but that's why I think it speaks volumes that Crosshair has more character development, maybe 5 or 6 episodes, like I said, than Omega did in 2 seasons. I mean, it's kind of wild to me.
It is here, Nick. What do you think about the team's development as a whole? Because I do feel like this sort of hurt the show as a bit because, like we said, like all the fun stuff was happening around them. A lot of the best episodes, like, did not have them in it for the most part.
That is true. A lot of the best episodes didn't involve them. That's a very good point. But I will say, I think Hunter had more of a development than we're giving him credit for. The whole getting away from Sid thing is kind of huge.
Yeah,
I think he did have a little bit of development. So, but I do agree with you that Omega and Wrecker did absolutely nothing the entire season, nor did Echo. So, Tech had a ton of development. We talked about it, and I think Hunter had a little bit, but that's really about it. And it's a great point, though, that you make that the good episodes didn't involve them, except for the finale, of course.
Or they're tangentially involved, where they get roped in by somebody who's more interesting, like Rex bringing them into the mid-season event after they sat the entire first episode out.
Yeah. That was that again. That's a great point. It's like they have like these 2-part episodes where the first part doesn't involve them whatsoever, and then the second part is, oh, now they're here to help with the problem. But if you think about it, that doesn't make the episode good because of them. The episode was good because it got set up by somebody else, and they were just there to clean the mess up.
Yeah, Pete, it feels very much like that sort of same concept we had in season one when we had the Hera backstory episode, where like the first episode they were only able to drop off supplies and leave, and the second one they came in and cleaned up the mess, and like we enjoyed the first one more than the second one.
Yeah, and I think that one maybe is because of a cameo or getting a storyline of characters that we haven't seen in a while or don't see a lot of. But yeah, I mean, I agree. It's kind of it's telling of the season that's kind of how we took away the 2 episode arc or whatever episode amount there is that we like more than the setup than we do them fixing it.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And let's go to Crosshair, obviously, because Pete brought him up earlier here. Crosshair is in a grand total of 5 episodes this season. In episode 3, the grand episode with Cody, where we see the moral dilemma the clones are facing. We see episode 12, where he makes his big flip against the Empire. Then he's in 14 to 16, the basically the 3-part finale arc here. So I think Nick was right here, Pete. I feel like Crosshair in his 5 episodes got more character development than any character in the team besides Tech.
Pete said that, not me.
Yeah, I was giving Pete credit for that.
I thought you just said Nick was right.
No, my mistake. I meant to say Pete was right, but Pete, like you
These
were dead on
guys.
with that.
First it's the character draft, and now this. I can't even get the credit. No. Yeah, I bet you if you look back, and I'm sure we have the numbers obviously recorded. I'm sure if you look back and we look at the number rankings we did for each episode, I bet you those 5 episodes average higher than the whole season did. I think Crosshair was probably the best part of this season. Mainly because of what storyline he was in. I don't necessarily think it was because of the character as a whole. I think more of the situation that the character was in. But it's 5 episodes and he still did better than Omega. So I think that character is kind of we need to see big things from that character next season for Omega to be relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of Crosshair though, Nick, the thing I like about what he did this season was very much like, yes, he's put in a very interesting situation by the choice. In fact, he was in the Empire still, and he was being confronted with like these morals, like, am I on the right side of this? Am I doing the right thing? And then seeing him make the big decision after like his second episode, or assuming how many missions he goes on off screen, was basically being put down the entire time to say, good soldiers do not have to follow orders, and he makes the big choice here. That's a bigger character than anybody we've seen in the show.
Completely agreed. I just wish we saw a little bit more of it in the season. I feel like we didn't get enough of the clone uprising that we thought we were going to get. I really thought that was going to be I don't want to say every episode, but the majority of the season I thought was going to be that. And it really ended up being how many episodes? 3?
I like maybe like 4 or 5.
4? I thought we were going to be getting that for most of the season, if not all of the season, and we didn't really get that much because it happened early on. When was the episode when we first started speculating about that? It was either episode 2, episode 3.
It was definitely 3. It was when Cody goes AWOL.
Yeah, okay, so that was the third episode.
Yep.
Yeah, so we thought we were going to be seeing, okay, this is it. Cody went AWOL. There's at this point 13 episodes left. I'm expecting 10 of them to be about this, and maybe 3 fillers. It ended up kind of being the opposite.
Yeah,
And that was a little disappointing.
it was disappointing here. Let's take a look here, big picture here. What worked for this season here, Pete? Like overall, like we have 16 episodes here. What worked? There's storylines, characters. Like what do you feel like really stuck out for you?
I think moving away from clone troopers and explaining how that's happening and showing that was probably their biggest success. I think the rest of it was filler. I think they tried to show character development with Hunter. They did a really good job with Tech. But I think the foreground of this season is, hey, we've never shown or really explained why we went from clone troopers to stormtroopers. We're going to put it on screen here on the Bad Batch because it's all about clone troopers. Why not? It's the kind of the best stage for it. So I think that's what worked well.
Nick, what else worked well for you?
I agree with Pete with what worked well, but I think the what worked well was the seeing. We knew it happened. We knew the clones turned into stormtroopers. So to add on to what Pete said, we knew that happened. But what we didn't know was, well, first off, how, and they showed us, but also what happened to the clones after. We have a very, very small piece of information in Rebels from seeing Rex and the gang. even smaller piece of information in Kenobi when you see that veteran clone in episode 2, kind of like homeless at the time. But how did the clones react to it? What happened to them? And we're kind of seeing that in front of us. So I think that worked a lot, and I think that Crosshair's entire story arc is working because it's putting the character in a dilemma that kind of puts the audience in the same dilemma on who's right. We've talked about this countless times before. When you have a villain who says, "I'm going to destroy the world because I want to," that doesn't work because then everyone's like, "Well, you're just being an ass. Why do you want to do that?" It doesn't make any sense. But if the villain has a reason that you can get behind, you're like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of compelling." Like Thanos, for example. Maybe genocide wasn't the answer, but you see my point. It's something that's like, oh, that is a real problem. Maybe he has a point here. And then you start getting more interested in the villain. When you're more interested in the villain, it makes the show believable. So I think Crosshair's dilemma being believable worked a lot because it keeps the audience like, oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think you made a good point here. I do think in terms of what else worked for me, I did think like I like that we got like fewer like it was cameo parties. Like last season 1 was sort of like, oh, like everybody's here. Like here's random defecting clone trooper is here. Here is the guy who mopped the floors in the building. He's here. Like they sort of like really shy away, tried introducing their own characters here. I do think that really helped Pete in terms of like making this universe feel a little more lived in, not like the small little corner we were in.
In the episodes that weren't the filler ones, yeah, I would agree. I mean, there was a bunch of them where you probably wish there was a cameo or two to just be like, oh, at least we're seeing something that we're interested in. But I agree. I think it's good that they went with their own story. I think in season 3 we'll have a good mix of their own story and also some cameos. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I agree. I definitely agree, Mike.
All right, now the more interesting conversation here. What did not work? Nick, you want to lead off that one?
Omega. In every way, well, Sid and Omega, really, but we'll get to Sid in a little bit. But Omega, you said it perfectly. I don't think it's a little less extreme than you said. You said every step forward, she takes 5 steps back. I think every step forward, she takes 1 step back. She's not going anywhere. She's not getting worse. I think she literally every episode, or not every episode, but it's just about every episode. It looks like she's making a leap to becoming a decent character that we can respect, and then she goes right back to where she was. So every step she takes forward, she takes another step back. And also, what didn't work was Sid. But I think that may have been the point. Get the audience to not like Sid because there's something up with Sid, and at the end of the season, they plant the seeds in the beginning of the season, but at the end of the season, we find out what's up with Sid. So, although I hate Sid and I hate the episodes that involve Sid, maybe it was on purpose that we were supposed to hate Sid.
Yeah, Pete, do you want to add to the six? I know you were the biggest like leader of the We Hate Sid fan club.
I have T-shirts made. I I think the way they went about it was what didn't work. I don't necessarily hate the idea of having the audience hate Sid, right? I think there was a reason for it. But if you really look at how they did it, they explained that Sid was a traitor in less than 3 minutes of content. If you really take a look at it, there's that one scene where the guy tells them, "Hey, watch your back." So that's 10 seconds right there. And then toward the end of the season, those last couple episodes where she's talking is like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that." Like literally 2 minutes of content shows that kind of switch, and I think they could have taken more time to flesh that out in a very good way than show us some filler episodes and just be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, don't trust her." So I think that's what didn't work. Not so much the character of Sid, because I just hated Sid in general. So I want to give the character the benefit of the doubt, if you will. I think it's just how they went about it.
I think my big issue with the season, I think you guys probably both agree with me on this here, that the story choices they made were like so like schizophrenic, where we're either gonna be this dark, serious show about the treatment of clones and how the clones get phased out and they're being mistreated by the Empire, and then we're going treasure hunting, Saturday morning cartoon stuff, fun stuff here, and like it felt like we got way too many of the second category and not enough of the first category, just the more interesting stuff here. And I think this is part of an issue of here, like this dictate from I'm assuming it's Disney saying we need 16 episodes of content, where like if you don't have 16 good episodes, don't make 16 episodes.
I mean, I see your point, but they're not going to not make the show because they don't have 16 episodes. Like they're going to do it, and they did it, and it worked. Like people do like it, so like they're going to continue to do that, and that's something that as consumers we just need to learn to accept that whatever an episode season is, 22 episode season, 16 episode season, 8 episode season, probably less than half are going to be relevant episodes. That's just how television works. It's unfortunate, but it's true. It stinks, but it is true, and you could tell right away. We've talked about this countless times on the podcast this season. When the episode is good, you know immediately that it's good. You find out in the first 10 seconds. You go, oh, it's a good one. When it's bad, it's a bad one. Yes, there were too many bad ones, but I can't see that stopping them in the future. Like, oh, we don't have enough. Let's not make the season. Let's scrap it. Like, they're going to keep doing it.
No, I think Pete, what my point more is more sort of like I think that this show is sort of is A, the Clone Wars spinoff Nick Flower earlier, but B, this whole idea of like we want to use this beam to tell the story of like how the clones got phased out of the Empire. And I think they're sort of we're stalling here, saying like we don't know how long we're gonna have to tell this story. So we're gonna give you some breadcrumbs. We have to fill this out to get to our episode order and not give away like all the juice. It's sort of like reminds me of season 3 of Lost, where we had an episode where the flashback was literally about how Jack Shepard learned like got the origins, got his tattoos and what they meant. It was one of the worst episodes of television I've ever seen. And there's them going to writers, going to ABC saying, see, we can't do this forever. Like, I feel like that was sort of the point where we got with episodes like treasure hunting or, you know, getting stuck in the cave. I feel like there were episodes like, we don't have enough storyline to go indefinitely. So please, like, let us just finish our story.
Yeah, I think also too that this show is a product of we want as many seasons as possible, but we don't have the content for it. I mean, pretty much just kind of saying what you said. Let's be honest, the root story that we're seeing with Bad Batch can probably be told in 1.5, maybe 2 really good seasons jam-packed of stuff. I think the breadcrumbs that are being left behind set up season 3. I'm hoping that season 3 doesn't have a lot of filler. I hope it's like jam-packed with stuff so that we can get as much content as possible, but you know they're gonna do it. But I agree. I think it's more of a hey, we can't keep doing this. Let's wrap it up. Let's do the right thing. I agree with you on that.
Have we heard anything about the length of season 3? Do we know how many episodes it's going to be?
We have not heard. I'm assuming it's the same length unless told otherwise.
Because I have a feeling that this is going to be a shorter season.
You think we might get like a 10 episode final season?
My guess is we're going to get a 10 episode or whatever, maybe less episode season because it's going to be purely what we're looking for. I think it's going to be a great season.
Yeah. I think something I just thought of here in terms of the issue I had with the storyline here is like, even in Clone Wars, where we sort of had these moments where like, you know, like Anakin's storyline isn't that great. We can go visit Ahsoka's storyline for an episode, or we can visit, you know, like what's Obi-Wan doing, or we can go hang out with Hondo and the Pirates or the Jedi Council. Like, we are so limited to what main characters we have that like we can't really bounce away just when they're all clustered together. And I thought like I think that's also part of the issue. We don't have anywhere else to go other than these guys or Crosshair.
True. I also think it's important to note, though, to anyone listening here, that we're spending a lot more time on what didn't work than what did work. But I think we're all generally fairly positive on the season. So it sounds like we hate the show. I don't think we do. I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, I think we enjoyed this. Even just like our frustration could not be like better based on like what we saw.
Yeah, like I said in the top of the show, I do think it was like a 7 out of 10. It was, and it was good. I'm not like completely disappointed. I just think there was a lot of potential. There was easily potential to be a 10 out of 10 season because we saw 10 out of 10 episodes. And that's where our frustration comes from.
Yeah, let's do a couple of quick wrap up things. I promised in the last episode I was going to update the clone tracker count here with Emery Carr's appearances. She appeared 4 times in the season, Pete. So our final tally in the clone tracker was 19 name clones.
Just missed that 20 mark, but not bad.
Yeah. So that was not bad. Now we're going to go to the MVP LEP board here. We're going to review the board for the season as a whole. These are based on our rankings of MVPs and LEPs for all 16 episodes here. So the MVP of the season, as we said, was Tech. He was +8 on the season. Dr. Hemlock in second at +6. And Nick, Cody's in third place at +3 after his 1 episode.
Trying to see if I can find anyone else on here who's in 1 episode who's on the high extremes of high and low. I can't really see any. I guess Gungi was, right?
Gungi and Palpatine both fit that same model.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both +2 along with Benny the Thief and Echo. Crosshair, Romar, Mayday, Hunter, Fee Genoa, and us are in the positives, Pete.
I'm really happy we made this.
Yeah.
It was to make the MVP board's pretty cool.
Yeah, we are on the board. Senator Chuchi was our 0. Our -1s, Wrecker, Governor Groton, Tony Ames, Disney, Venomore, Mako, and Saw Gerrera from the finale. I gave the Empire's -2 Lieutenant Nolan, who Crosshair killed in episode 12, is -3 Mullen Vice Admiral Rampart. Omega's at -5, and Sid in Dead Last at -11.
Where she belongs, dead last. Terrible character. Never want to see her again.
It is to be noted that when Sid comes around, or excuse me, when I'm in a situation where I'm like, oh man, I don't know who to make my LVP. Just go to Sid. It works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like I felt like that was me and Andor with Karn, because Karn usually did stupid things and never showed up.
Right. Although I was a big Karn fan, but yes.
Yeah, because Sid is now our second lowest character ever in the LVP war, just ahead of Karn -12. I feel like Karn's gonna start going up in season 2.
Hopefully we get wait, well, I'm sorry. What did you just say?
I
hope you didn't say what I thought you said.
I said I feel like Karn's gonna go up in season 2. He's gonna get better. He's gonna get out of this range.
Oh, yes. I thought you said Sid, like Karn, is going to be going. I thought you meant Sid as well. And I was like, oh, no.
I think Sid's gonna sink further next time we see her.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so now the fun part, the episode rankings here, and this is gonna be a lot of fun. I split this into 2 slides here, so we'll start with the high end first. These are the episode rankings that we did over the course of the season on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best Star Wars content of all time. 1 is worse than the 1978 holiday special here. So we're going to start here with the top 8 episodes. So we'll start out here. Number 1, the finale, Plan 99, got a 9.67. It's episode 2. Episode 8, Truth and Consequences of the Mid-Season Event, 933. 3, the Solitary Clone, the Crosshair episode, the first one, 883. 4, episode 12, the other Crosshair episode, The Outpost, 8.5. Episode 7, the Clone Conspiracy, 833, the other half of the mid-season event. Episode 14, Tipping Point, checked in at 6 and 8 even. Episode 11, Metamorphosis, the first real Just Bad Batch episode on the list at 767. And episode 6, Tribe, the Gungi episode, 667. So what do you think of the top 8 so far?
It's lower than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Which one was lower?
All of them. Like this looks lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do have some high scores here. I mean, we got two over 9. We got 6, 8 or higher. That's something I would have thought going into the season.
Well, I am very happy that you organized this the way you did by putting in the episode number in there, because when you go to just a name, I have no idea what you're talking about. So having the number in there really helps.
Yeah, so that's the top 8 here. So the bottom 8's a doozy. We're going to go to that now here. So the bottom 8 includes some of the lowest episode rankings we've ever produced on this show here. So we're going to start out here next. Chapter 15, episode 15, The Summit, is number 9, 633. Then our 2-part premiere, Spoils of War, 567. Ruins of War, 533, 10 and 11. Pabu, episode 13, where they go on the beach planet, 5 even. The bottom 4 is where the dregs come in. Episode 9, The Crossing, 4.0. Episode 10, Retrieval, The Bane of the Thief Arc, 383. Episode 14, episode 4, Faster, where tech goes dirt like death racing, 3.00. And episode 5, Entomb, Dead Last, 2.16, Nick.
That is bad. That is really bad.
Yeah, I feel like some of these we were stretching to get them above average here.
Yes. So I don't know if you have this information in front of you, but if you don't, and you don't do quick math in your head, do you know what the average is here?
Of the season?
Yeah, just don't do the math. Like, that ruins the fun. I have the answer in front of me here. Do you know what it is?
I do not.
6.4.
So slightly above average.
So 6.4 is the average episode of this season, and I said at the beginning of the show, then the show was like a 7, so I think that's fair. It's pretty close, and yeah, I think that fits what I was expecting. It's a slightly above average season, and I think last season was an average season, so I think this kind of fits the bill of what I was trying to say.
I just think for me, it's just like, I feel like this show this year is like, if we had coordinated out some of the terrible filler crap and did this like as a leaner 13 episodes, I think it's been a much improved season.
Well, if you take the bottom 3 episodes, which would be episode 4, episode 5, and episode 10, and you made those Dr. Hemlock episodes, which gives them an 8.5, let's say, right?
Yep.
Your average episode goes from 6.4 to 7.4. That's a good season all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So you take those bottom 3 episodes and they just weren't Sid, which I'm assuming they were, or Sid and Wanda Sykes episodes, you know?
Yep. And then the two-parter, which should not have been a two-parter, with them losing the ship and getting it back the following episode.
Oh, which one was that? Is that 9 and 10?
That's 9 and 10.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only good part of the episode was the talk that Tech and Omega had in the cave. That was the only good part of that whole two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, P, any last thoughts before we close these out?
No, everything seems to be in place. From what I can remember, it all seems to be there. And to Nick's point, I think Nick nailed it when he said it's about a 7. We pretty much, that average was what, 6.4, you said, Nick? So we're right there. So I mean, it's telling. We obviously, not to toot our own horn, we know what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's for sure here. So last but not least here, they did announce that season 3 at Celebration, they announced it would be the final season of the show. We did see the trailer. They saw the trailer. We didn't see the trailer, but we heard that Wolf is in the trailer, Palpatine's in the trailer, Rex is there, like a bunch of familiar faces here. So, Nick, A, do you agree with the decision to make the season 3, and B, season for the last season, and B, what do you think about we can see going forward here for this last season?
I think I do agree with it being the last season. I touched on it at the top of the show that it is a spin-off. How much longer can it really last? One thing that I just don't think is going to work. The show failed at entirely, and I can say that now, even with a season left. Omega's character did not turn into the word isn't even fan favorite. The Omega character didn't even turn tolerable, and that's a problem.
You never got the Ezra.
That's a big problem. We never got the Ezra. We never got the Ahsoka treatment where she picks up a little bit over the seasons, and that is a big problem.
Well, I mean, there's so little time in between the seasons. Also, I mean, like they didn't give her much of a chance.
They didn't, and you had 32 episodes to work with, and I would imagine she was in what, 30 of them, 31.
She was like very high,
but there's no more than 2 episodes she wasn't in, right?
Yeah, I don't think she was in either crossover episode, and maybe like one other one.
Okay, so let's say 29 of the 32 episodes she was in, maybe 28 for sake of argument. They had time to develop that character in 28 episodes, and they didn't.
Yeah. I also think, P, here, I do think that like Nick might be on them with the shorter season episode count. You might get a 10 episode final season here. But, like, if we get like, like the clones get phased out, because we know that these guys basically end up losing here. They all sort of end up scattering the wind who's left here. So I guess you can see what happens here. Because I would assume that like we already killed Tech off here. I don't know how many of the actual team are going to make it through this.
Yeah, I think a like 6 episode season, as probably crazy as that sounds, or excuse me, 9. I'm sorry, 9 episode season is probably what we should get. Do what I think the last season of Clone Wars did, 9 or 7 or 8, something like
12.
that. Or it was 3.
12, but it was really
12?
8 because 4 of them were Martez sisters.
Okay, I thought it was a lot shorter, but I think maybe having 3 arcs, having them all to do with each other, and just giving us really good content, maybe raising the runtime a little bit so it's not 20-minute episodes. I think we'd have a great season 3, and to just piggyback on what everyone's saying, I think it's very, very appropriate to stop it after the season.
Yeah, and Nick also said the fact that before the Wolf is in the trailer, he's a guy we see in Rebels a little bit, and I don't think he was in Clone Wars before he showed up in Rebels, right?
I don't think so.
It's interesting that we get this character back for the first time since then. Like, we know that he ends up hanging out with Rex and Gregor out on this, like, just on an abandoned, like, what is it? Like, we say it was like a crawler droid, basically, tank droid they're living on at that point, those guys. So interesting to see maybe like if some of these other guys sort of like, go on that path with them and then end up splitting up later on.
Maybe he was in Clone Wars. According to the wiki, he was, but I don't remember. I don't remember him in Clone Wars. Whatever.
Yeah, but I do think it's interesting we get him in there. I do feel like that, like, again, like I think, would you be shocked if like the only real character we get like out of this, like with any sort of like being alive, is Omega?
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I could see all of them living. I can see all of them dying. I could see half of them living. I don't know. To be honest with you, I can see Tech living too. I'm not convinced.
I think Omega's the only one's plowing because they're not going to kill a kid off on a cartoon.
I would agree they're not going to kill a kid off on a cartoon. That I agree with. But I also don't know about the other ones. Like the other ones, I have no idea. Like Wrecker, he could die, he could live. I don't think it makes. I don't think it makes a difference in the storyline of Star Wars if he's running around or if he's not running around.
Yeah, I think my
Should have
prediction.
just say sorry to cut you off, but they could just say they joined the rebellion. Done.
Yeah, they could do that too. My prediction is the first half of the season is going to be them trying to get back Omega and Crosshair from the Empire. Then the second half just ties up whatever clone revolution thing goes on here. It fails, and then they all go their separate ways. That's my sort of hunch right now, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably put a Sid mission in there, unfortunately, and not a Sid mission, more like a Sid episode, I should say, because I don't think we've seen the last of Sid, unfortunately. Can I just add, because we talked about this briefly, just go on a tangent, we get back. It pisses me off that there is a trailer of season 3 out there that they will not release to the public, but they showed to the celebration. And we talked about this too, about the Mandalorian episode. Like, I can understand if you want to do it like a day early, the celebration gets it, then you release it. Just release the damn trailer. People have seen it. It's not a secret anymore. I could probably go on Reddit tomorrow or tonight and find out what that trailer was about and find some clips. So it's a little infuriating, but I'm done with my rant. We can go back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, Nick, that's always the thing that frustrates you about celebrations. That I think it was maybe 2 years ago. They started putting everything behind the paywall where you had to actually be in the room to see this stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind getting exclusive access, but I do mind when it's like this. So, for example, what I'm trying to say is they could show the trailer at Celebration and then give it to us maybe 3 weeks later, a month, even a month later. Say this is coming a month later, fine. But like, are we ever gonna see it? Probably not. No.
I think we're getting
like that same trailer. Probably not. We're gonna see a different trailer in the future.
yeah, because I feel like whatever trailers they actually intended to put out for public consumption, like went out, like that celebration, like the Ahsoka trailer went out, and I think what else they gave us something else. I feel like, but I don't remember what it
Yeah,
was.
I just feel like if they want to show it to them early because they're there, fine, and then show it to us a couple days, a couple weeks later, like that's fine. But this, which whatever it is, could be a month till we see it. That's too much.
My problem is though, like even like if you go to celebration, not guaranteed to be at that panel because they only have like lotteries of what ones you end up going to here. Like you could intend to go and not be let in the room.
That's true too.
And that's what I think the live stream is supposed to be for. Is like those who cannot get in the room say, oh, like check out what we're doing here. And then if you want to, get us something exclusive in the room, because they cut our feed for like how long it is, then go back. That's not a hard decision.
I have to say, I think, and we can end this because I don't want to go too much of a rant here. When you limit access to content, you limit the Star Wars fans that can get into the genre or the theme or the franchise. I think that the NHL has the same issue right now. I mean, you got to pay X amount of dollars to get ESPN Plus, but if your team is playing in your home state and you don't have cable, you can't watch it. It's blacked out. So I think we need to stop with this restricting access and just say, you know what? We want as many people to watch. Make it available. Just make it available. I'm not saying to give everything for free. I understand paying for Disney Plus and all that stuff, but make the trailers available when they come out. Like Nick said, if you want to do it a week prior, but say, don't worry, in a week you're going to get it. We're just giving special access to the people who are here that paid for a ticket, a plane ticket, whatever. But it seems to be that there is a lot that is on like lockdown unless you pay to be there. And that's just not right to me.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And coming up next week here, now we cover our two big shows. We're going to do the next piece of content. It's actually coming out today on day of release here. Star Wars Visions next week, Nick. So we're covering volume 2. We'll discuss the 9 shorts and see how we feel about it.
I'm excited to watch. I'll be watching on a plane, so that'll get me through the plane ride. And I did want to mention before we go, it's now been since the release date, 6 days since Jedi Survivor came out. I've been playing through the game. I've gotten almost halfway done, I think, maybe a little bit less, about 40% into the game, and I enjoy it a lot. We'll get into more detail on that another time, but I'm enjoying it a lot so far. It's a lot of fun. The story's good, sure, but like the way the game is set up, the way the gameplay is, I enjoy the gameplay a lot.
Did they fix the maps in this game? That's my number one complaint.
I don't think I'm far enough to know, which sounds crazy that I'm only 40% in and I don't know yet. But let's just say I'm gonna be 40% done with the game and I'll only have been on 2 planets. It's hard to explain. I think it's kind of more open world. So just hard to explain. I can't really tell you.
How much playtime have you invested so far?
Maybe 5 or 6 hours.
It's not bad. Sounds like a solid,
It's supposed to be a 20-hour game, so maybe I'm just going fast. I don't know.
You might be skipping a few things that like maybe
I do play on an easier difficulty, so maybe they factor that in when they're talking about how long the game should take.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably like 20 hours on average difficulty.
Probably, and the boss fights. for me are very simple because I play it on easier difficulty because I'm more interested in the story than I am the challenge.
Yeah, I'll probably be doing the same way. I feel like I don't have time to be a grinder in this game, in this kind of game.
Right.
All right, so that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week to talk some visions here. So if you want to follow on social media, how can I do that?
At PJ Consadori 29 on Twitter.
Nick, how can people follow you on the social media streets? How can I do that? I mean,
They won't, Mike. They'll follow us at the Sky Guys Podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter.
Yep, that's right. You can check out all the reels in the podcast now too. We had a lot of fun with those.
Yeah, and clarification, I said the Sky Guys Podcast. It is Sky Guys Podcast.
It's at Sky Guys Podcast on Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter, mphillips331. That's MPHILIPS331. This week on Just on the Suffering podcast, we did the NFL draft recap, Nick. I joined by Daryl Slater from the Star Ledger, previewed that. I went over all that. So a lot of fun, like getting ready for the draft. And you might be coming up on the other podcast soon.
Yeah, very excited. Very excited about the Giants draft. Very excited about the schedule coming out. A lot of big changes in the NFL. Sure, you're excited. You got a new quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of primetime TV also for me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to be it for us this week. Until next week, may the force be with you. Happy May the 4th, everybody.